Hello and welcome to From Digital to D&D. In this series, some random guy on the internet tries to take a character from fiction and attempts to turn them into a usable stat block for you to use in your games of Dungeons & Dragons. For those of you unaware, each episode of this series will be broken down to the following sections. The character introduction, where I attempt to explain the background of the character. The feature breakdown, where I point out what aspects of the character I'll be tempted to convert. The stat block, where I show off the monster sheet and explain how it works and how to use it. And finally the plot hooks, where I explain possible uses for the character in your games of D&D. Naturally, any character that features in this series belongs to their respective owners. Today, we're going to look at a more recent iteration of a classic character in cinema, specifically their appearance in the Monsterverse owned by Warner Bros. Let's take a look at the protector of Skull Island, the defender of the Hollow Earth, King Kong. Kong is a titan that appears as a colossal ape. Belonging to the prehistoric species simply known as the Great Apes, Kong was born on the isolated island of Skull Island. This island was home to an array of different and dangerous creatures that were cut off from the rest of the surface world. By the time Kong was born, his parents were the only ones of his species left on the surface, as his kind had been locked into a centuries-long conflict with another species of titan known as the Skull Crawlers. Kong's parents died shortly after his birth, leaving Kong alone. Skull Island was a brutal teacher, but it molded Kong into one of the most dangerous creatures on the island. Unlike most titans, Kong had a soft spot in his heart, and he would go on to protect the weaker creatures of the island, including the human tribe of Iwi. Kong's life was a simple but hard one. When he was not doing what he had to in order to survive, Kong exterminated any skull crawlers that woke up. This way of life would continue until 1973, when an expedition from the outside world started dropping bombs on the island, which awoke several skull crawlers. Kong wasn't happy. The actions of the outsiders caused great strife for Kong as he fought several awoken skull crawlers. The worst came to pass when a trap laid out for Kong, which inadvertently awoke the Skull Devil, a larger and stronger skull crawler. After a great battle between the two, Kong stood as the victor and took the title of King of Skull Island. Kong would continue to stay on Skull Island and slay any skull crawlers that surfaced, choosing to ignore the call of King Ghidorah. Unfortunately, the climate on Skull Island would shift and the whole island would be consumed by a cataclysmic storm that rendered the island uninhabitable. Kong was saved by Monarch, who opted to use him as a way to stop Godzilla's rampage. Whilst attempting to move Kong, the transport fleet was attacked by Godzilla and the two titans began their duel. Having the home field advantage, Godzilla emerged victorious. Shortly after this battle, Kong was ushered into the Hollow Earth, where he found a world similar to Skull Island. With the hope of finding more of his kind, Kong found an ancient ruin where he claimed a special axe made from a titan bone and the dorsal plate of Godzilla's species. Whilst Kong tried to explore the ruin, the floor was suddenly burst open by a blast from Godzilla, who had blown a hole from Hong Kong to the Hollow Earth before issuing down a challenging roar. Kong accepted the challenge, and with axe in hand, he engaged Godzilla again. With the verticality options of the city and the power of the axe, Kong had the edge. As Kong went to deliver a decisive blow against Godzilla, he blocked the atomic breath with his axe, which went on to become supercharged. The now supercharged axe sent Godzilla hurtling back, and Kong stood as the winner of the second round. The third round began shortly, and a feral Godzilla badly wounded Kong, the fight ending with Godzilla as the victor and Kong close to death with several injuries. Thanks to a jump start from the humans, Kong was able to get back up and join the fight against Mechagodzilla. Now working with Godzilla, the two tore the mechanical titan apart and the two parted ways. Godzilla took dominion of the surface, and Kong took dominion of the Hollow Earth. Kong adapted to his new life in the Hollow Earth, but he still longed to find others of his kind. During his many battles, Kong's tooth became infected, forcing him back to the surface to get treatment, which resulted in a replacement metallic tooth. Upon his return to the Hollow Earth, Kong found a new area that had been opened up where he found more of his kind, who went on to ambush him. Fighting the attackers off, Kong took the youngling and forced it to take him back to the rest of his kind. Kong was led to a section of the Hollow Earth where the tyrannical great ape known as the Scar King resided, the two titans clashing. Kong almost won the fight until the Scar King released his secret weapon, Shimo. This ice titan was too strong for Kong, who was forced to retreat as his arm had been badly frozen. Fleeing to the humans again, Kong was given a special gauntlet meant to strengthen him. Realizing he could not beat the Scar King alone, Kong took to the surface to call Godzilla. The two came to blows, but the fight was stopped by the emergence of Mothra, and together the trio battled the Scar King and his forces. After a tense battle, the Scar King was slain and Kong returned to the Hollow Earth to rule the collection of his people the Scar King once ruled. Kong's life has been filled with constant battles, which molded him into one of the most tenacious titans in the Monsterverse. Kong can simply be described as a great primate. He's able to swap between bipedal and quadrupedal. He's a highly adept climber, able to climb almost anything. He's also highly resourceful. Unlike most other titans, Kong does not just rely on his natural weapons, but will use tools and the environment to his advantage. He possesses near-human levels of intelligence, which allows him to learn and adapt quickly. He can communicate with others of his kind, as well as being able to speak with a form of sign language. During his battle with the Skull Devil, he used the propeller and chains of wrecked ships as weapons to slice and restrain the Skull Devil. When fleeing from the Scar King's forces, he used several traps he created to escape his pursuers. With the axe in hand, Kong has shown great proficiency in using it. As a result of his lifetime of battle, Kong has incredible stamina and durability. Whilst he isn't as durable or resilient as Godzilla, he still has more than enough. As a giant primate, Kong's strength is also very high. Even amongst his kind, Kong is incredibly strong. He can rip trees and boulders from the ground before tossing them great distances, and with great accuracy. His jaws are strong and sharp, able to pierce even the likes of Godzilla's scales. His maw is no joke, as Kong is carnivorous and is willing to eat any animal. His strength grows even higher when he enters his berserk state, a state where Kong has had enough and goes in for the kill. Kong does have a few weaknesses. He struggles with cold environments like any other primate. He also isn't an adept swimmer. Whilst he can swim, it is slow and he can't hold his breath for long. He also lacks any scales or any other form of natural defense, meaning he can be more easily injured, and he heals at a natural rate, meaning certain injuries may keep him out of commission for a while. Though he may lack natural weapons like other titans, Kong still stands as one of the most dangerous titans alive, and it is fortunate that he is benevolent. Kong is interesting, as from a surface glance, he would appear to be a bigger version of the giant ape in D&D. I set myself the challenge of making Kong feel unique and not just a bigger ape. So, let's see the sheet. It was honestly a challenge to try and make this feel like Kong, but through broken equipment and nasty illnesses, I think we have a good result. Of course, you can look through this at your own pace, but I'll work through the sheet now. Kong is a gargantuan beast with a titan subtype. I debated making Kong a monstrosity, but by the rules of the Monsterverse, he is a natural creature and is a member of a species. You can change it if you want, but for now, I'll be going forward with Kong as a beast. And if you're worried about players using this via polymorph or something similar, don't be. They could only take on this form at level 20, and by then, you've probably got bigger fish to fry. Gargantuan is the largest size in 5th edition, but if you're willing, you could make Kong titanic in size, though this would be purely superficial. Kong is neutral, but you could argue he is neutral good. Kong has shown no care for rules or authority seen with his interactions with Godzilla and the Scar King. He does look out for those he cares about, but he's also willing to turn something into paste if it gives him a reason. He has an AC of 20 from his natural armor and an average hit point total of 430. This comes from his 24 D20 hit dice and 178 constitution modifier. He has a movement speed of 60 feet and a climbing speed of 60 feet, as Kong is easily one of, if not the most, agile land titan in the Monsterverse. Moving on to stats, Kong has the following: 27 strength, 16 dexterity, 24 constitution, 11 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 18 charisma. He has a +9 to dexterity saving throws, +13 to constitution saving throws, and +9 to wisdom saving throws. He also has a +14 to athletics checks and +9 to perception checks. Kong has resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks as a result of his thick skin. He has blind sight out to 120 feet and a passive perception of 19. He knows Great Ape and Sign Language. As an Alpha Titan, Kong has a challenge rating of 20. Starting with traits, Kong's first trait is Legendary Resistance, which he can use 3 times a day. This lets Kong succeed on a saving throw he fails. Next is Siege Titan, which lets Kong deal triple damage to objects and structures. Standing Leap gives Kong a 300 foot long jump and a 100 foot high jump, with or without a running start. Stubborn is a special trait. It gives Kong advantage on saving throws against being charmed, frightened, or having his mind influenced. Kong refused Ghidorah's call, which few Titans did. Finally, there's Titanic Weapons. Kong's attacks count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. Moving on to actions, Kong's first action is multi-attack. This lets Kong make 2 attacks, which can be fist attacks, Titan Axe attacks, or a combo of the 2. Next is Bite, which is a melee weapon attack with a +14 to hit against one target within 5 feet. On a hit, the target takes 4d12 plus 8 piercing damage. If the target is a large or smaller creature grappled by Kong, he swallows the creature. The grapple ends, and the swallowed creature becomes blinded and restrained. It has total cover against anything outside of Kong, and takes 12d6 acid damage at the start of Kong's turns. If Kong takes 50 or more damage in a single turn from something inside him, he must make a DC 25 Constitution saving throw or regurgitate anything in his stomach. Creatures thrown up by Kong fall prone within 10 feet of him. If he dies, a creature is no longer restrained and can climb out of Kong with 15 feet of movement, exiting prone. Kong's next action is Fist. This melee weapon attack has a +14 to hit against one target within 10 feet of Kong. On a hit, the target takes 6d10 plus 8 bludgeoning damage. Instead of dealing damage, Kong can choose to grapple the target with an escape DC of 22. Rock is a ranged weapon attack with a +14 to hit against one target within 120 feet and a greater range of 600 feet. On a hit, the target takes 78 plus 8 bludgeoning damage. Kong's final action is Titan Axe, a melee or ranged weapon attack with a +14 to hit against one target. If used as a melee weapon, it has a reach of 15 feet. If used as a ranged weapon, it has a range of 120 feet and a greater range of 600 feet. On a hit, the target takes 6d12 plus 8 slashing damage. Next up is bonus actions, and Kong has one, King's Roar. Kong emits a primal roar which forces each creature of his choice within 300 feet of him that can hear the roar to make a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw. On a failure, the creature is frightened of Kong for 1 minute. It can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turn, ending the effect on a success. A creature which successfully saves against this is immune to it for 24 hours. Reactions are up next, and Kong has 2 options. The first is Axe Charge. This can be used when Kong is targeted by a light spell, cone spell, or similar effect that specifically deals force or radiant damage. Kong can add +6 to his saving throw against the effect, and if he is successful, he takes no damage from it. In addition, the Titan Axe attack deals triple the amount of damage until the end of Kong's next turn. Kong's other reaction is Berserk, which can use once per short or long rest. Kong can use this reaction when he takes damage and he is below half his total hit points. Kong enters his berserk state, which lets his melee attacks deal an additional damage die and gives him advantage on strength related rolls. Finally, we come to legendary actions, which he can use 3 times per round at the end of another creature's turn, regaining any expended uses at the start of his turn. First up is Charge, which lets Kong move up to his movement speed. Swing lets Kong make 1 fist or Titan Axe attack. Boulder Toss costs 2 legendary actions to use and lets Kong make 1 rock attack. Chomp also costs 2 legendary actions and lets Kong make 1 bite attack. Kong's last legendary action is Pummel, which costs 3 legendary actions to use. This lets Kong make 4 fist attacks against a target he has grappled. But that is the end of Kong's sheet. Shorter than some others, but I think it covers the big guy fairly well. With that done, we can move on how to use Kong in a game. Kong is arguably one of the easiest titans of the Monsterverse to implement into a D&D game. He's a natural guardian, which has so many options behind it. Think of who, what and where Kong is guarding and why. When he was on Skull Island, Kong protected the creatures of the island from threats, mainly skull crawlers who were predators. The ecosystem of a location could be the what. As for the who, Kong cares for the people of the iwi and is fierce in his protection. Even when the iwi of Skull Island were reduced to just 1 child, Kong had an innate care for her. Skull Island could serve as the where, but you could easily put Kong into another special location. A creature of Kong's size and power would have a heavy impact on a region ranging from the island itself to those who live in it. The iwi revered Kong as their god, and their architecture reflected that. They took as little from the land as possible and only what was needed to survive. Think of how the people of an area Kong calls home would act. Seeing the Titan would inspire great fear and awe, and he would almost certainly be some sort of spiritual entity for them. If you want to move Kong off of the island, you could use the Hollow Earth. With a bit of work, you could have a large section of the Underdark actually be like the Hollow Earth, with abundant life of all shapes and sizes. This could allow you to use the more mystical elements of Kong in regard to his species. We see ruins made by his people with strange and mystical properties. Maybe the party are hired to explore these colossal ruins, only to find they are not alone in their search. The heir to the Empire is also walking the halls. You could also tap into Kong's cinematic roots. Perhaps an eccentric noble or wizard wants to capture Kong and show him off to the world. One breakout later and you've got a colossal ape rampaging through a city. Maybe the party are a part of the expedition to find and capture Kong wherever he calls home and bring him back. Along the way, they might encounter tribes that worship Kong and an array of monsters might try to hamper the progress. Maybe they change their mind when they learn Kong is guarding something highly dangerous and important and now have to help Kong get back home. There's also the option of enlisting Kong for help. Maybe a certain radioactive lizard is stomping around and the party have to find Kong and bring him in to pacify the threat. With Kong serving as the main offense, the party can then assist Kong take down the threat. There are countless options as to what you can do with Kong, which put him far beyond a simple big monster. His intelligence makes him relatable and his search for companionship is something we can all understand. Really consider what you can do with him. But with that, we've reached the end of today's video. Before you head off, I would like to thank you for watching and I hope you managed to get something out of this. The stat block for Kong is available on D&D Beyond for free and the link to it is in the description. I hope you all have a great day and may your dice roll favourably. Goodbye for now.